Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. My name is Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Janine Valentine. I love that last name. Janine is an author, poet, and entrepreneur living in Colorado with her 2 dogs. She loves to travel, carrying with her a sense of humor and curiosity. Yes, my type of girl. Experiencing her surroundings with a soul level sensory awareness, Janine expresses these perspectives and insights through her deeply relatable writing. She believes that by vulnerably sharing our personal journeys, we light a path, inviting others to also engage with their fears, release constraints, and find genuine community. Welcome, Janine. I'm so excited to have you joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes, girl. This is so up my alley as far as why I'm doing this podcast. I think right along with you, storytelling and sharing our story is such a healing process for not even just the storyteller, but the people that get to hear the stories.
Exactly. I've been amazed at the process of sharing my story, unfiltered. I think that's an important piece of it, is so often we pretty up our stories, right? So when we share it in its raw, vulnerable, messy, the full spectrum of what happened to get you to where you are, the resonance, the stories other people are then sharing with me in response, especially we as women. I think when someone goes first, when someone shares something vulnerable, it opens a space, right? And so when we tell our stories, then it opens a space for other people to share similar experiences and feelings. And that's what I'm experiencing through sharing this story, that I am getting feedback from people who are telling stories that they have kept to themselves for way too long.
Yep.
And it's just such an important piece of community and even just humanity, of us just being our full selves.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell that story all the time as far as how this podcast even started. I started this podcast because of my own story. I was just starting a little YouTube channel to tell my story. That's all it was. Her version was her. Her was me, my version of my story. And exactly what you said, women started to come up and just say, like, oh my gosh, your story is so inspiring, or thank you so much, or you've helped me, or whatever. And then I started to think, like, share your story. Like, I don't know what we're doing, but like, come on and share your story. I would love to hear your story. And it really does. Sharing allows other people to feel comfortable to open up. So when did you figure this out? When did you have this aha moment for yourself?
Well, I was quarantined in the Maldives with COVID. So I was traveling with some friends. This was in September, October of 2021. So we were kind of coming out of it. It felt like it was safe to travel. And we were just on a small boat out in the Indian Ocean on vacation. There were 12 of us. And we took the PCR test, standard protocol, right, before you fly home. And I tested positive, and all the rest of my friends tested negative. And it's funny now, but it was not funny then. Yeah, so I was whisked off that boat onto the main island, and all 11 of my friends went home without me. And I had to quarantine for 2 weeks, but the government did not have a plan in place for my care. And so what ensued was 2 weeks of trauma, facing my biggest fears, being all alone. I didn't have resources. I had to find my own shelter, food, water, medical care. It was bad. It was really hard. And I journaled the whole time I was there. And then when I came home, I knew, just like we were just talking about, I knew it needed to be shared. I knew that what came from me processing through this in a raw, vulnerable way and allowing myself to feel everything, being present with myself, that needed to be shared, because it was a message for others as well. And so that was my first experience with sharing something this big, this vulnerable, this messy out into the world, was writing this book about that experience, and not editing it, not making it pretty and shiny. There are things I'm embarrassed of that happen, and they stayed in there. And it's because it's part of the experience and it's real, right?
Yes. Wow. So interesting. And what a interesting way for you to recognize that this was necessary through COVID.
Yeah.
So cool.
There were gifts from COVID.
I know
it was a really hard time for the world, but there have definitely been a lot of gifts to us from that time, for sure.
Well, I know that that this podcast is based off of storytelling. Mm-hmm. We love to hear stories. Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to share a story of a past challenge or a darkness or a struggle that you went through in your life, how you were able to overcome it, and kind of like what you learned from it.
Do you want me to go prior to this experience or within this experience?
It doesn't matter. Whatever story comes to you that you feel pulled to.
Okay. Well, I was married for 29 years, and then we got divorced. And I got married when I was 19 years old, and here I was 48 and getting divorced. And I had never lived alone, never in my whole life lived alone. So I moved into an apartment by myself, and I didn't know who I was. I really felt like I didn't have an identity. My whole identity had been being a wife and a mother, and we had empty nested, and all of my dreams were attached to what we as a family, or my husband and I, were planning to do, and that slate was wiped clean. And as I sat alone in my apartment, I realized I didn't know myself at all. And I understand that this is a pretty common experience, actually, because we tend to put ourselves on the back burner and caretake, right? So it's like, oh, these are the foods my family loves, so I cook those. But I had a friend who invited me for a weekend shortly after my divorce, and she's like, I want to pamper you. What are your favorite foods? I didn't know. I had no idea. I couldn't answer that question. And that just hit me to the core, that I just had no idea. So getting to know myself again during that process, it was really hard. It was definitely life-changing. I am now so grateful for this divorce, not in a bitter way. My ex and I are friendly, but in a way I'm grateful that he had the courage to end this, and he set me free. And he didn't know he was doing that. I didn't know he was doing that. I didn't know I had given up my full identity in that marriage. But having this opportunity to just sit with myself in the pain of an emptiness, of not having an identity at all, and digging and finding one thing at a time, from the simple, what do I like to eat, and what music do I like to listen to, and how do I play? What's fun for me? What scares me? All of those things, just getting in touch again. So that was kind of the beginning of this journey. That was layer one for me, to figure out who I was and to learn to like myself, and start building a life that I wanted to live, a life that reflected me.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So was it the divorce that introduced you, or was kind of the first step into you coming into the world of like personal growth, personal development, or had you already been mingling in that? When did your journey start as far as healing?
No, I hadn't been working on that at all. And I came from a long history of perfectionism and busyness and doing, and our value came from, you know, what we got done and all of that. So having the divorce was like me figuring out who I was. I think that that was the trigger for me to start seeking answers to that. And it was very basic at first. And then I had the bandwidth to go deeper and do the personal growth. So I took a regular job. I mean, I had stayed home with our kids. I wasn't working outside the home. I had this massive shift, right? I had to go get a job. I had all this stuff. But after being at that job for a couple of years, I realized I wanted to work from home. I wanted to have my own business, which was felt like a crazy idea to me because I didn't have a spouse anymore. I didn't have a stable secondary income, and I was just on my own. But I decided I needed to try. I needed to invest in myself and do it. So I started my own business, and that was the next big step for me. And then 2 years into my business was actually grew too fast. I know that sounds ridiculous. People are always like, that's a great problem to have. Well, it is, but it is still a problem nonetheless. So I was drowning. And so I sought out coaching. And so I went into this group coaching with other female entrepreneurs, and we had life coaches. It wasn't just business coaching. And the concept really was holistic. It was as we are in our lives, so we are in our business, and vice versa. And so I'd done 3 years of that coaching then, which was where I really started to dig deep and change some old beliefs and really create this life for myself. And then I went on that trip. And so I was primed for these big lessons that happened to me in the Maldives because I already had been exposed to this type of an awakening to yourself and this coming alive. Yeah. So it was good time.
Yes. Good timing.
So it was a process. I think it is with all of us. It's not usually one event, but I can see now looking back how it was a chain of events, and they were all put in place intentionally. They were all for me, and they were all guiding me.
Yes. Was there any thought processes as far as, holy crap, I have to actually start using what I'm learning? Like wanting to fall into the the victimhood of like, oh, this sucks. And then really recognizing like, oh, actually, I know better than this. I can't be doing it. I can't be all negative like that. Was there any cognitive dissonance with like back and forth of wanting to be negative, but then knowing you can't be negative?
100%. It was a little bit of a different driver on that, but yes, 100%. I actually realized when I was in the Maldives that I was afraid of my fear because I believe in manifestation. And so if I allowed myself to spiral into the fear, then I might attract more things to be afraid of. And I was also had this old story, playing in the background where I had shame around being afraid, that I was supposed to be strong and brave and other people would be handling this so much better than me and all those stories we tell, right? So there was, and it was back and forth the whole time. I can't say that I just shifted over and started using my tools and improving my mindset, but every time I felt like I was spiraling, I had myself try something else. It was like, okay, we're going to go for a walk. We're going to put on some music. We're going to do some box breathing, just whatever those tools were. But at first it was driven by fear. It was like, I can't let myself go here. But then it became really about survival. I literally said to myself, like, no one is going to rescue me. There is no one that is going to come do this for me. So I can't afford to spiral. I can't get lost in this. I have to function. Literally my survival depended on my ability to think clearly and make good decisions. And you can't do that when you're, not in yourself. You have to be in your heart, not just in your head. And that was hard. It was really hard to stay in both. And it's just this duality, that I became more comfortable with while I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to struggle or challenges in your life now that you've gotten to this point where you've gone through a healing journey, you're evolving, you're, rising mentally and emotionally as a human. What have you noticed as far as when you are confronted with a challenge or a struggle now? What are some of the steps that you take to kind of pull yourself out? Because there's so many women that are watching live right now that are in a dark place right now. And they're sitting in victimhood and they're like, you don't even get it, Janine. Your story is different than my story. My story is the worst story of all the stories. This was what I did,
Yeah.
So in order to give a glimpse or a little bit of a hope of like maybe just taking a step into this new concept or this new thought process that you're kind of talking about or that you've done through your journey, what are some things that you do personally when you're confronted with something now?
Breathing is huge for me, breath work. So really deep breaths helps me get back into my body, because one of the first things I do when something like that happens is I kind of leave my body. And so I have to re-engage with my physical and get really present. Sometimes I need to move, do some sort of movement, go for a walk. And sometimes it's as simple as just standing up, and rooting into the ground. But for me, finding compassion for myself has been a game changer. Just learning to talk to myself like I would to any friend. We talk to ourselves so harshly and we're so judgmental, and it's not even coming from a place of truth. And if we stop to really listen to that, we can hear it. So I acknowledge, and I allow my full spectrum of emotion. So it's like, of course you're scared right now, Janine. Of course you are. Like, let's bring that into the room. Let's acknowledge it. Let's sit with it. What's real about that fear? What is not real about that fear? And then, I think I actually started capitalizing the word fear and treating it like a persona. So I imagine fear as a toddler. It's so much like a toddler. It's just going to get louder and louder to try to get your attention until you acknowledge it. And it's needy AF, right? It's just like, I need your full attention and I'm just going to derail your whole life for a minute until I get your attention. So that's just kind of a conscious visualization that I do. It's like, okay, fear is in the room. Let's sit down, let's chat, let's talk about this, let's figure this out. And then I can move forward with my little toddler in tow. It's like, you can come with me. It's okay that I'm afraid. I don't need to lock you in a closet and disregard you and diminish you. I don't need to pretend this isn't happening, because I think that's harmful to us too. So those are kind of like some of the things. Writing is a good processor for me, and it allows me to tap into some things that maybe aren't in presence of mind. But inhabiting my body, allowing fear to come with me, finding compassion, those are really big.
I love this idea of, first of all, capitalizing it and thinking of it as a person, but I love how you're saying it's like a little toddler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right? That's how mine is. I don't know if yours shows up the same way, but mine totally feels like my kids when they were toddlers, and it's just, fear serves a purpose, right? It's a warning for sure, but we just give it all this power. And it's just, it's like, if we let our toddlers rule our lives, that's a problem. So, but they need to be listened to. They need to be heard. Yeah, there's value in what they're bringing to you. And sometimes it's the little stuff. You got to pay attention. So, but yeah, mine is totally like this little screaming, tantrum throwing.
Yeah. If we could shrink it from this big ogre-like figure into a little child. Yes. And I also
Mhm.
appreciate you saying, like, you bring him with you or her or whatever, like
Right.
travels with you, and that's okay.
Yeah, I
Because
think
that's
so.
true. Yeah, you can't just
Right.
like throw it in the trash.
Nope. It's impossible. We think we are. We think we're pushing it down. Okay, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm just not going to act afraid. I'm going to act as if I'm going to, all the things we say. I have friends that I would be like, how could you not have been scared while you did that? Oh, I was. Oh, it just didn't show. It's like, okay, well, I wear my fear loudly on my sleeve. Everyone knows when I'm afraid, but it's that thing that it's coming with us no matter how we express that, whether we put on a stone face or we show it in our eyes. It's still present in the room. So invite it, like be conscious, and that puts you back in the driver's seat. Like then you're the one that's making decisions. You're the adult in the room. You're
Yeah.
parenting your fear. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. That was so good. Um, when it comes to limiting beliefs, what were some limiting beliefs that you became aware of, that you are kind of working your way through, and or that you kind of just tossed in the trash? What are some of your limiting beliefs that you've dealt with?
There've been quite a few along the journey. One was that my value came from, we touched on this, my value came from what I could do. I felt like I was a really good support person. What's interesting in that is that kind of took away my belief in myself as being competent on my own, that I kind of needed to have someone I was supporting. And so these beliefs, as I discovered them, they kind of led into other beliefs that were in my subconscious, that I needed to have someone with me in order for me to make good choices or good decisions or to get something done. So that was part of my fear of being alone, is that I wasn't supporting someone and it was all on me, and I didn't have a lot of practice with that. But also just that I had to be performing, and I could only do things I knew ahead of time that I would be good at, because God forbid I fail. It's like that was not acceptable. So I just avoided doing anything that I wasn't certain ahead of time that I would be able to accomplish. So these are the ways that I kept myself small. I kept myself in the background. And so I had to confront those as I started my own business and things like that, where I had to be out front, and I had to risk doing things that I hadn't ever done before, that I didn't know that I would be okay. And I had to teach myself that it wasn't the other person that I was standing behind that was making me good at what I was doing, that I was just intrinsically good at doing that. And it was okay. And that I had value without someone standing beside me or over me.
Yeah.
And so I had to come to all of that. Yeah. Busyness. I think we struggle with that. I was that person, literally could not watch a 2-hour movie without stopping it every 15, 20 minutes to go get something off my to-do list done, because I felt shame at sitting there and holding still. I heard the voices in my head, must be nice that you don't have anything to do for 2 hours. Yeah, actually it is. It's really nice to have nothing to do for 2 hours. I didn't know that I could actually create that space for myself guilt-free, and that was a reward for the hard work. And
yeah, that is one thing that I have finally at this point in my life begun to appreciate more than I've ever appreciated, is the downtime. Because of that, I always had that guilt of I have to be doing all of the things all of the time, and I have to be go, go, go all the time. And I'm now at a point where I can sit and I can watch some TV or be on TikTok, or, not put my alarm on and just allow my body to wake up whenever it wakes up every once in a while. And feel comfortable with that versus feeling this heaviness of like having to do all the things all the time. It's such a great place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give ourselves permission. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What does success mean to you?
Well, actually, it kind of ties into what I did on my vision board this year. It's going to be a strange answer maybe, but for me, success is spaciousness. It's, yeah. So I've just been paying attention to when I feel like a day was a really good day and what made the difference. And it's that I have the space to find my own rhythm. There's spaciousness for me to listen to my body, to spend time spontaneously with someone else, to be available. It's just this sense. So I like having a lot to do, but I like spaciousness in that, where I can ebb and flow. And so I will spend time working, in front of my computer, and then I will step away and I will go walk my dogs or do yoga or whatever and I just have this spaciousness in that when sometimes time goes really fast when we're doing something we love because we're super absorbed in it, but when time goes really slow because you're doing something you love, do you know that feeling? That's the spaciousness for me. It's like, I don't want to be so absorbed in something that I'm not present anymore and that I check out and 4 hours disappear. I want to be present in a way that I'm aware of the juiciness of the day and that hour or whatever, so that it's not disappearing on me. That's success. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Wait. So being in a space where you're conscious of the time that you're enjoying, mm-hmm, and it going by slow versus fast.
Right. But not in a way like it's dragging, like, there's times when things go slow and you're like, ugh, right. But it's not like that. It's like, oh my gosh, it's only 1 o'clock. Sometimes it's a mindset thing too. It's already 1 o'clock. Oh no. Or, oh, it's only 1 o'clock. I have so much time still available to me to do the other things that I wanted to do today. So we can reframe that as a spaciousness instead of this scarcity mindset towards our time and our resources in the day. So to me, that's success, when I have been able to frame my day in that way and I'm incorporating all aspects of myself into my spaciousness. There is time for all of me. That's what I strive for the most.
Fantastic. I've never really heard of that. That does make sense. Speaking to, first of all, I want to acknowledge those watching live. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with us. For those of you watching on the replay, if you could hashtag replay wherever you are watching us at, we would so appreciate it so we can show you some love. If you are watching us live or on the replay right now, if you could share this video wherever you are watching us at so we can get more eyes and more ears on this awesome value that Janine is sharing with us today. It would benefit us as a platform as much as it would also benefit those that would see it and need it. So thank you so much. But I want to ask, Janine, speaking to the females out there that are watching live or on the replay right now, who are struggling with vulnerability, being vulnerable with themselves, with their spouses, what would be some advice that you could share with them?
It's pretty hard to teach ourselves to be vulnerable. I feel like I was fortunate in that I had a couple of big experiences that forced it on me. And some people have that where it just happens to us, and others have to choose it, which in my opinion is harder, even though it's maybe less traumatic. But I would just say, first, start with yourself. It really does come back to that compassion for yourself. And then find someone who's safe, and if that is just on paper with yourself or a video to yourself, like just a way that you can actually openly admit. I first became vulnerable with the ocean. I walked and sat on this beach and I screamed and I cried and I opened up and I said things that I didn't even know I was feeling or believing. I just allowed it to come out. There was really no witness, right? But it opened that door for me to have the big ahas that come with it. And what I would just encourage is that we are holding ourselves back. We are not expressing what we're here to express. We're not being what we're here. There's someone around you that needs to hear your vulnerable share because they're going through something similar. There's someone around you who has been through something similar, who can actually show up for you in a way that you never imagined. And there's someone that you're going to now be able to show up for. And this is what I mean by just that community that we can form if we can normalize talking about fear, if we can normalize our vulnerability. We're so closed off about that and not wanting to share those things that scare us, right? And vulnerability being one of the biggest things. So if we're willing to just take that first step, find someone who's safe that you can just do that with, even if it's just you, you'll be surprised what will come out. Go someplace where no one can hear you and start digging into yourself, talk out loud, see what comes up, and then find a way to call people in who might share that with you and be brave enough to have community. I have book clubs that I've been visiting, and I'm not kidding. I've had women in those groups, after I share my story, that are sharing things that they had not told their own family members yet in these books. And it's like, so it's that thing. You've felt it. We've all experienced that as women. We've been in a room where someone shares something hard, and our inclination is to be like, oh, I get you, hon. I get you. I've been there. I felt that. Let me tell you this. And so you'll be surprised when you're willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
How we will show up for you.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. I host or our community hosts a book club called Her Book Club. And same exact thing. We actually read together. So we don't go home and read. We actually read the book together and then discuss open forum what we read. And all the books are on personal development, mindset, all of that stuff. But yeah, so much so as far as women really opening up about areas of their life because the author is sharing. And so this gives, the individuals that are there the opportunity to feel comfortable sharing also with similar situations or thought processes that they're having. And then it just kind of is a domino effect.
Yes.
Super healing.
It is. Oh, it's so needed.
Yeah.
We need so much more of this in the world. It's enough of our hiding and suffering alone. It's enough already.
Yeah. So tell me about both things are true.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the title of my book. Both things are true. It's a journey from fearing trust to trusting fear, which is deep if you stop and think about that. Like I was afraid to trust myself. Some people are afraid to trust others. But leaning in and learning to trust your fear, to listen to the message it has for you and to let it be a rational presence in your life. So it is the story of my quarantine in the Maldives. It is directly from my journals, but it is beyond that. It is about my reintegration back into my life here that I had changed so dramatically in 2 weeks that I didn't fit back into my life. I had learned to be so fully present that planning or even thinking about the next hour, let alone the next day, was a huge challenge for me. Sensory, I was just like on fire. I could feel all of my senses firing at full bore the whole time. Being around people was suddenly like a lot, I'd been alone. So I share all of that. I share my tools. I share all the things I learned about myself and the world. And so it came out in September, and I am just so in love with the journey that this experience that I had that was so traumatic to begin with has become this opportunity for me to have these conversations with women like you and your audience. It's been beautiful.
So both things are true, meaning fearing trust and trusting fear?
Meaning I learned to hold emotions in duality. So I could be in full fear and also fully trust I was going to be okay. I thought it had to be one or the other. I thought I had to put my fear away. I was trying to get rid of my fear, and it wasn't going anywhere. So, but I also really knew that I would be okay. I just didn't know what that looked like yet. And I was afraid of what I was going to go through to get there. And once I realized that those could be held in duality, and I learned from the sea, when I looked at the ocean, it was turbulent further out, but calm up front, but it was the same ocean. It's like, oh, I feel that way too. I feel both turbulent and calm. And I started to see all the ways that this played in. There was a time when there was a cash issue. I only had $38 for my 2 weeks there. And I had one of the guys who worked at the little hostel hotel where I was staying came and cleaned my room. And I felt horrible about this because I'd been sick in there. I'd been quarantining in there. And yet it needed to happen, right? I needed my room cleaned. And I literally only had $1 to tip him. And it was not anywhere near enough. But in that moment when I handed it to him, I felt really proud of myself for being brave enough to give him my last dollar. And also so ashamed that I knew it wasn't enough to reflect the gratitude I had for what he had just done for me. Wow. So, but I held both of those together. And so it's like, I think that was the biggest message for me, was that across the board, both things can be true. And I think so often we try to just pick and choose the things that we want to be true and that we're going to allow into our lives. And we try to dismiss the things we label as uncomfortable or bad, or, that people are judging maybe. So I allow it all now. And it's both things are true, and it's okay. They're not in conflict. They coexist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I so appreciate that. And I talk about that all the time. And I appreciate the eloquency, if that's a word, that you're describing this in, because I think that there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of shame around not doing it right. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm supposed to be fully this at this time because of this. But fully recognizing that they are happy and sad, or scared and happy, or know everything's going to be okay. But then viewing that as anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, not having their shit together, not wanting to share openly about it because they think they're doing it wrong.
Right. We're so judgmental of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we just need to normalize this. The full spectrum of your emotions are 100% necessary, not just okay, but necessary. I look at them like two hands on a piano. It's like the ones that we think of as dark, or that we keep a little more hidden, that bass left hand, and then they can be playing totally different melodies, right? But they're still music. And you can still hear and feel and interpret both of them separately, but together they're a beautiful expression. So I think we need to allow it all. It all exists for a reason. We put the labels on it. Those are not real.
Yes. So true. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
So I would love for you to share, what exactly do you do? How do you help all the humans? What's going on in your community, in your world, with your business? Tell us all the things.
Well, the business that I started is a real estate transaction management company. So I work with realtors, and I work with their clients and all the parties involved, the lender and the title person, from contract to close. I've just freed up a lot of time for my agents. So that is my day job, which I love so much. And it plays into the side of my brain that's all about logic and checklists and timetables and like geeking out on all that stuff. And then I write. And so I am a poet. I write poetry, and I've written this book. And now I'm surrounding myself with more writers and authors, and really allowing this creative side of myself to come out. And I don't know where this is going yet, because it's still pretty new, but I'm learning to just allow myself to be more visible with it. It's not just something that sits in my journal. And I'm understanding that I can help others, through through the way that I write. So those are kind of my two. I'm straddling what I consider two businesses at the moment, and I don't favor one child over the other. They're my full expression.
That's fantastic. Where can people find you for those that are resonating with all the goodness that you're sharing? We have your website, obviously, above your head right there, JanineValentine.com. But where do you hang out on social media the most? Where can people hang out with you?
I'm on Facebook the most. I have my personal page, and then I have an Artivism page, which is where I'll sometimes post my poetry and others. I'm going to be creating a Facebook group specific to my Both Things Are True, where we can talk about some of the themes in the book. I just haven't gotten that created yet. I'm also on Instagram as janine.valentine.author. So you can find me on there as well. I have a newsletter that comes out every month where I continue to share what I'm learning and what I'm working on and struggling with, just as vulnerably. And I give writing prompts, and it's really interactive. You can sign up for that at my website on that JanineValentine.com. And the book is available in paperback and ebook, and I just came out in audio. So Audible is carrying it. It's on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon. That came out January 11th. So
beautiful.
I read it too. It's read by the author. So it's told in my voice. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Very cool. What are your big dreams for your business?
Specific to my real estate business, I just love what I do. I have deep relationship with my clients. I don't have big dreams to take it anywhere bigger. I don't have any interest in managing a big team or anything like that. I have 2 assistants. I'm really happy with where it's at. I just like that it funds my life and it allows me to still travel, something that's really important to me. My big dream for my book is just, I know that this book is part of a movement, and I just hope that I can, do it justice, right? That I can just follow along, let it do what it's here to do, be a good spokesperson for it, and be open to doing whatever it's going to ask of me next.
Yeah. Why do you do what you do?
Because it feels like me. It's just, it comes back to that. I'm being true to myself. It's just, I'm more than my job, and I'm relational, I'm creative, I'm logical. I'm finding ways to express all those pieces of me. It makes me happy. I actually have built a life I love to live. Yeah.
How exciting. What a great place to be. Well, I'm so happy for you. I so appreciate you coming down and sharing some time and some space with us here on Her Version. For those of you watching live or on the replay, if you resonate with Janine and all the goodness that she shared, be sure to check out her website, JanineValentine.com. You can find her on social media under the same, Janine Valentine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Just don't keep yourself small anymore. Start to notice the little ways that fear is holding you back, and challenge yourself to make friends with it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. Thank you, Janine, for hanging out with us today. For those of you that are new to this podcast and enjoyed this content, make sure that you subscribe, follow, and like. If you would like to share a story, check me out at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I am so grateful to be here, sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire